Brace yourself. We are the X-Men. X-Men Evolution. Next.
Being a kid growing up in the early to late 2000s, I never really watched the 90s X-Men animated series. 90s Spider-Man, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and Batman the Animated Series were the only older cartoons that I watched at the time, as I mainly watched shows that were coming around at that time. Sorry, old heads. As of late, however, I've been getting really into X-Men as characters in a group, so it only makes sense that I spend my time watching some X-Men series. Obviously, the ones that I watched were X-Men Evolution and Wolverine and the X-Men. Sorry, old heads. While watching these shows, in the back of my mind, I was just thinking, how will the MCU implement these characters in the near future? I mean, this is a good ass question because the mutants in the MCU will be a very big thing going forward, and the way to get integrated into that is just as important. This honestly could make or break the entire cinematic universe, and I think that a really good way to set it up already has an answer. That answer lies in X-Men Evolution. Again, I'm sorry, old heads.
Oh, he'll get a little cooling off period.
If you aren't familiar with X-Men Evolution, this show came right after the X-Men movie in the year 2000, and it serves as an introduction to these characters to a new generation after the 90s series. The film introduced these characters to the general audiences, but X-Men Evolution is related to the new set of kids growing up with the X-Men. You see this in the characters, with the only adults in the X-Men being Charles Xavier, Wolverine, and Storm. We also see Hank McCoy, but he doesn't really get introduced until the second season. The main core of X-Men, however, which were Cyclops, Jean Grey, Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, Rogue, and a new character for the show, Spike, are all teenagers in high school, a little bit older than the main target audience of the show. And the main antagonists of the show, the Brotherhood of Mutants, are also aged down to the same age as our main characters. The Brotherhood in the show includes characters like Mystique, Avalanche, Toad, Quicksilver, the Scarlet Witch, and Blob. During the show, we get storylines with Magneto, the Sentinels, the human disdain and fear for the mutants, and even Apocalypse. All these things are fit inside of its 4-season run, and the massive storylines, while interesting, are not the best part of the show.
Kurt, you're early.
Okay, I'll leave.
Aging down these characters turned out to be a great move by the creators of the show. While sticking to the teen archetypes that were prevalent in the media at the time, you have Scott, the cool kid, Jean, the popular girl, Kurt, the dork, Kitty, the princess, Spike, the skater kid, Rogue, the goth chick, and the Brotherhood, which are all bullies. This is a very broad and simple explanation for the characters in the show, but we also get to see who they are as individuals aside from these stereotypes. Scott handles the burden of being a leader, but he's also flawed and just as immature as the people around him. Kurt, while a lovable dork, is insecure within his own skin. He doesn't feel normal, but not because he's a mutant, but because he's looked at like a monster. Rogue is detached from others because she's afraid that if she makes a genuine connection with others, she'll wind up hurting them. The other characters all have their own arcs and storylines, but the point is that while on the outside we see these incredibly cool characters with superpowers we could only dream of, they are just as insecure and uncertain of themselves as you and me. These people are discriminated against just for being different than what other people would say is normal. While some people are ready and willing to accept them just as they are, like they're just a regular human, other people view them as freaks and a burden on society. That's what makes the X-Men such good and interesting characters. While some lame ass people might just call them woke, the X-Men do a great job at representing people trying to fit in and change a society that isn't completely ready to accept them in an attempt to live together in peace. Some people may want to take a different approach towards the same goal, but in the long run, the endpoint stays the same: acceptance.
Good. The Blackfoot is not the place to be fooling around. You frightened Kitty.
Sorry, Kitty.
Just stay away from me.
Alright, I know you're ready for what I said in the intro, and here's how I think that X-Men Evolution lays the blueprint to introducing the X-Men in the MCU. First off, let me give a spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen the show, because I'm going to be talking about some really specific things that occur in the show. Alright, y'all still here? Bet. In the show, mutants are there and prevalent, but most people aren't even aware they exist. This is due to Charles Xavier basically blocking the memory of mutants in the mind of most people whenever he can. But we see that there are still people who know that something is wrong or are aware of people with enhanced abilities. Well, at the end of season 2, the X-Men and mutants are revealed to the world, and when the world finds out about this, they get scared just like they do in the comics. We then see our characters having to adjust to a world that knows their existence and are afraid of the power that they hold. I think this aspect of the characters can be used in the MCU in a relatively the same way, where most people aren't aware of mutants but they're still around, and there's still some people that know that they are around, like Nick Fury. So when we get to that first X-Men movie, we can sort of loosely adapt where the world finds out about the mutants, and now we have to see our characters who were once just seen as normal people in society adjust to now being viewed as dangers to the world around them. Even in a world of superheroes, we can see that people are afraid of some things that they just don't understand. People will obviously be divided on these mutants, as you couldn't tell how to separate the good ones from the bad ones. We've seen this storyline played out successfully in a children's show 20 years ago, and I think it won't be much of a challenge to replicate it within the MCU now. All I can say is, no matter how the mutants are introduced to the MCU, I am genuinely excited to see how these characters fit into the larger world that Kevin Feige has created. We have already seen some seeds planted here and there that hint at their existence, and with the return of X-Men 97, the interest and desire for mutants is only going up. I have my own pitch for MCU X-Men that I have been brewing in my mind, and if y'all are interested in that, I could definitely put together a video whenever I have time. But whenever and whatever they decide to do with the X-Men in the future, just know I'll be seeded for their first film. Thanks again for watching this video. If you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe to the channel for future uploads. If you like what I said in this video, then please tap into an episode of my podcast, Tendencies, wherever you happen to find podcasts. I'm Jay Reese, and I'll see you next time.